Victoria, well, there's a phenomenon in home ownership that has inspired a lot of books and movies, the money pit. You know, now how does a new homeowner who is doing a renovation, how do they avoid turning that from a home that needs a little TLC to a money pit where it's just repair after repair?
There are a couple of guidelines to avoid that money pit. One is you got to set a budget and you got to try and stick to it as best you can. Make sure that you give yourself that 5 to 15% cushion for any incidentals like changes or along the way, right? Sometimes you have to DIY stuff. Like if you can do things yourself, like, if you're capable
Right.
or have friends, that will help.
Welcome to CooLife Podcast, brought to you by TheRealThingDating.com. www.TheRealThingDating.com.
Polydor Records for out scouting. This girl grabbed my bangs and ran my head right into the speaker.
Oh,
And everyone here like this, yeah.
When we shot the scene in Good Will Hunting, I didn't know who most of these people were at the time. I mean, they weren't stars. It was Gus Van Sant that directed it. Gus Van Sant was on the floor with Matt Damon's character.
Hunting.
I didn't even know who Matt Damon was at that time.
I'm Eva John. I'm a former candidate for local government. I was a children's television entertainer, and I love this world, and I believe we should take care of each other and have a lot of fun along the way. Welcome to CooLife. Here we go.
and welcome to Cool Life Podcast. I'm Eva John, returning from our holiday hiatus in 2025. And today we have Vittoria Gallone, real estate agent with Forest Hill Real Estate Brokerage. Vittoria, welcome.
Hi, Eva. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's always nice to have you here. I'm so excited to continue our conversation and to talk about the exciting world of real estate. Now, I know that there are different seasons, different times when it gets a little bit busier in real estate compared to other seasons and other times. Now, in the fall, sometimes there can be a little bit of a push in real estate sales. Do interest rates going up or down make the real estate market busier?
I think they can. Right now, the Bank of Canada just cut interest rates since, I believe it's at 3.25%. And they did that since the lowest since mid-2024. The next interest cut we'll hear about it on January 29th. I think that it's of course, people, and I get it, people want to wait until the interest rate goes down a little more. And I heard this the last cut, I think, but it depends. It's valid, right? Because they want to get a lower interest rate. Makes sense. There's a little line that I use or I say to people, and I don't know who the author of this line is, but it's date the rate and marry the price.
Okay.
So, because the dating the rate interpreted means that the rate's going to come down a little bit. It's going to change. But buying a house at the prices that they are now, or, at a time when prices are, like you mentioned, different seasons, the prices are going to increase. Obviously, the interest rate comes down. There's going to be more affordability. People are going to start ramping up on house sales or, looking at homes, right? But house sales, house prices will also go up. And in spring, it's a busy time, spring, summer, fall, beginning of fall. So, yes, I think that it does make a difference.
That's good to know. Now, in this scenario, with a person who is ready to buy, they have their deposit ready, they're maybe pre-approved even from their bank, should they hold off and wait till the interest rates are lower, or should they just go for it because they've got their ducks in a row?
Um, if you get a pre-approval, which is really important, and I would always recommend get a pre-approval. It helps you to budget and stay within your budget of what you can afford. So going out with your real estate agent, this is very helpful to know. And you won't be so stressed, like you won't be looking, wanting something that you've looked at but is so out of your budget and you can't justify that. So waiting, so you've got the pre-approval, the interest rates are good and they're down a little bit. You might consider it. I think you need to also consider look at, and your real estate agent can help you with this, but what the prices are at the time. And as I mentioned, because you want to be buying, there's an advantage to buying maybe in the winter, because not a lot of people look for places and they don't want to move, right, in the winter. But there may be some advantages, right? Then springtime, when everybody is feeling good, weather's great, everybody wants to move before the kids start school. But that also means that potentially prices could rise.
Okay, so these other factors can push the actual value of your house up or down just because of demand.
Right.
Oh, something to keep in mind when you're ready to make that move. We're taking a break to talk about our sponsors and supporters. Please remember, you can send your comments to us by writing to info@CooLifeWorld.com. That's info@CooLifeWorld.com. Send in your comments and opinions. We'll read them on a future show. And right now, we're taking a break to talk about our sponsors and supporters. We'll be back with more real estate talk with Vittoria Gallone, real estate agent, on CooLife Podcast.
RingFitBoxing.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is Stefan Boy. At RingFit again, we're teaching real boxing. We're teaching techniques that I've used, that other boxers have used. We're teaching techniques that have been passed down to me from my trainer. If they've worked for me, they'll work for whomever. In fact, we've had actual competitive boxers from RingFit, just whom started off taking classes and have competed and won.
Call 647-347-7063. RingFitBoxing.com. Those lonely days of lockdowns and isolation are gone for good. Go to www.therealthingdating.com. That's www.therealthingdating.com. It's time to share. Share your time, share your life, share your love. www.therealthingdating.com. Join for free. Upgrade at any time, starting at just $5.99 a month. www.therealthingdating.com. Because it's time. You're listening to the CooLife Podcast. We'll be back in 3, 2, 1.
And we are back on CooLife Podcast. I'm Eva John, continuing our conversation with Vittoria Gallone, real estate agent. Now, can an interested buyer get an edge by, as saying before, having their ducks in a row? they get pre-approved on their mortgage, and like, can that help them to avoid missing out on a really good deal? Or can you find that if you've just gone in without being pre-approved, does that affect your ability to just zoom in there and close a deal?
Well, being pre-approved is important because you want to, again, stay within your budget. Your agent wants to be able to take you out to see homes that are going to keep you within your budget, and it won't add stress, right? It's reduced. You already know. I actually do have some clients that I've been asking them, it's been a few months, and I've been encouraging them to get a pre-approval before we go out to look at things. Now, in the beginning, I mean, they're very busy people, but, and I totally get that. But getting pre-approved, finally, they did that. They talked to a banker and a mortgage broker, and they're doing that now. When I took them out to start looking at properties, they were a little relieved because they were able to, I took them to see things that we had an idea about being in their budget, and then we got more of a confirmation of what their budget actually is. And it's a good thing that we're within that budget. And they also said, I get it. I get the pre-approval, because I was encouraging them to do that just because they were feeling anxious about, not being able to afford something they really like, or they had wants and needs, but, they couldn't afford it, or can they afford it? But they found that, yeah, we could afford it. Like, we can still find them in properties. So get that pre-approval.
It helps you to set proper goals, targets for the property that you can get.
If that's the case, and then there's something that you really like, but you can't put in an offer. You could put in an offer, but then there's going to be conditions such as financing, which if you're up against somebody else bidding on a property or putting in an offer, that could sway the sellers, right, when you're trying to buy something. Or if this way, for sure you're pre-approved, and when you get the pre-approval, be sure to ask for it in writing. This way, when you go back to them, you can say, hey, you pre-approved me for this much. Let's get it going. I made an offer, and we have a condition to get financing, and we need to, we don't want to lose this place. So let's do it because we were pre-approved. That's no guarantee, but having it in writing is much better than a broker or a bank saying, yes, we'll pre-approve you for $300,000. And then when you go to them, they haven't gone through all the numbers. And then they're like, oh, wait, we have to reconsider this.
Right.
And then that just makes the process more difficult and stressful.
Well, if there's a way to reduce the amount of stress, all for the best. All for the best. So we've all heard about people shopping for their forever home, and whatever that might mean to them, right? Where they think they're going to stay through their retirement, stay there forever, going to stay there for more than 5 years, going to stay there for more than 10 years. But once they start throwing around the word forever, and a long time, right? And so if they're moving into their forever home and they're looking for their dream come true, things like a wine cellar, summer kitchen, huge backyard with a willow tree. And then you think, as the years go by in this forever home, what does that look like when you've got a huge Scarlett O'Hara staircase or slippery marble floors as a person gets older? Do you ever try to help a buyer to see what some of the long-term effects may be in some of these beautiful homes they're looking at as their forever home, what that might look like becoming a senior citizen in a home like that?
Oh, for sure. I mean, depends on the demographics of the people that I'm showing homes to. We will, we'll talk about those things. It's important when your real estate agent meets with you that they take you through your wants and needs. And I think that's when you discover some things, because to help them find that dream home or forever home or transitional home. So it depends, when your agent's speaking with you and asking you these things, hopefully, they'll keep in mind as they're showing you homes. And but it depends on what stage of your life you're at and
Well,
what you
I
feel.
mean, generally, if somebody is, they're getting on in years, and that's when they've achieved more in life and accumulated more in life, and or maybe more able to get a so-called dream home. But then they start looking at a six-bedroom home when, their kids might be getting ready to move on to college and university. And it's like, well, as you grow older, there's a lot of rooms to do dusting in, and 6 empty bedrooms or 5 empty bedrooms, and, you can take naps in different rooms like only so much.
Right. I wouldn't sway somebody. I mean, if somebody is really looking for a home, I mean, if they're close to retirement and, but they're still asking for a home that has 6 bedrooms. Again, I'd have to work with them, speak with them, maybe ask them why they would want 6 bedrooms. Could be grandkids coming over, could be someone moving back in, whatever their situation is. But that's where I would ask and determine what their wants and needs are, because that's really important. And then take them to homes that they want to see. And maybe, you show them something with 6 bedrooms, and then you have that conversation about, because there's 3 flights of stairs. So you have that discussion with them, and then maybe you take them to something, 1-level bungalow, or a ranch style bungalow with 5 bedrooms. So again, determining what the wants and needs are of the client, and then appropriately taking them to see what they want. A lot of clients may think they want that big home with 6 bedrooms. But then once they see a few, it might be different. They may change their mind or realize that, yeah, that's not gonna work for us. So depends on the situation. Everyone's different.
For sure, yes. And, they might have a different support network, interaction with family, and those are all factors. Things to think about as time goes by as to what is your idea of your dream home or forever home. Right now, we're going to take a break to talk about our sponsors and supporters. We'll be back with more Real Estate Talk with Vittoria Gallone, real estate agent, on CooLife Podcast. RingFitBoxing.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is Stefan Boy. At RingFit again, we're teaching real boxing. We're teaching techniques that I've used, that other boxers have used. We're teaching techniques that have been passed down to me from my trainer. If they've worked for me, they'll work for whomever. In fact, we've had actual competitive boxers from RingFit, just whom started off taking classes and have competed and won.
Call 647-347-7063. RingFitBoxing.com. Those lonely days of lockdowns and isolation are gone for good. Go to www.therealthingdating.com. That's www.therealthingdating.com. It's time to share. Share your time, share your life, share your love. www.therealthingdating.com. Join for free. Upgrade at any time starting at just $5.99 a month. www.therealthingdating.com, because it's time. This is CooLife Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to CooLife on your streaming service and on YouTube as Hellenique Today. That's HELENIQUE Today, because that helps us to bring more cool stuff to your ears. You're listening to the CooLife Podcast. We'll be right back.
And we are back on CooLife Podcast. I'm Eva John, continuing my conversation with Vittoria Gallone, real estate agent with Forest Hill Real Estate Brokerage. Vittoria, there's a phenomenon in home ownership that has inspired a lot of books and movies, and one of them is the money pit. Now, how does a new homeowner who is doing a renovation on his own home or her own home, how do they avoid turning that from a home that needs a little TLC to a money pit where it's just repair after repair?
Yeah, that could happen. I think, making repairs, I think there are a couple of guidelines to avoid that money pit. Just a couple of them are, one is you got to set a budget and you got to try and stick to it as best you can. Make sure that you give yourself that 5 to 15% cushion for any incidentals like changes or along the way, right? So put that aside. But budgeting is one. Another one you got to think about is sometimes you have to DIY stuff. Like if you can do things yourself, like, if you're capable,
Right.
or have friends, that will help. And so that'll take you and give you some savings, right? So think of things like that.
Well, one of the things I wonder about is the fact that, you talk about a budget and so on. Now, there are times when I think some homeowners may not be aware, even though it's always there in black and white somewhere in that big stack of papers they sign when they buy a house, is that you're buying a thing from a person. And there are certain built-in basic warranties that exist that you can encounter a problem with a house that doesn't have to be your responsibility, right? You buy a house where you can say, oh, I want them to have the furnace inspected before I take it over because that furnace is 15 years old and maybe on its last legs.
Right.
Or you say, okay, we started our renovation. We found out that there's all kinds of illegal wiring behind the walls. And what can you say to that? Oh, we're going to follow up. Here we are 2 weeks after I bought this house, found all this illegal wiring. We're going to follow up with the original homeowner and say, look, you're trying to sell me all this illegal stuff under the walls and I've got to fix it. No, you're going to pay. Can you do that? Can you follow up with the original owner and make them responsible for some problems with the house?
So here's the thing. First of all, your agent, when you're looking at a house, I say never forego an inspection unless your eyes are wide open, you're buying a money pit or you're buying a fixer upper and you know what it's going to need. But even to know that the structure is proper, always have somebody take somebody in, do a home inspection. Now with home inspections, so there's a couple things. One is they can't see behind walls. What they're looking for is like things that stand out. They'll go up on the roof and they'll look at that. They'll look at the electrical box and make sure it's up to date. They do the things that but they're not gonna, they can't look behind the wall. They don't
Right.
know. Like they're gonna look for water damage, things that are obvious to the eye, right? And then once you look over that inspection with your lawyer, with your real estate agent, but once that inspection, and if there's things there that don't look right, first of all, you're going to have a condition in your offer to say that you need inspection. And it's usually 5 days, a week for you to get that. Then you're going to go through it. And if there's anything that doesn't look right, like that's obvious, like, I don't know, let's say the roof needs, like there's a hole in the roof on the tiles, like when they were looking at it. Well, you're going to bring that and you're going to let the sellers know, and then it could be, they repair it before you close the deal, or you get a discount, you get a reduced price, and then you fix it. So you negotiate with some of those things. But let's say you forego that inspection clause on your offer, there's no turning back. If you forego that, you cannot hold them accountable after you move in, after closing. Right. So it's a very important clause to put in. The other is something behind the wall, like you said. Now, other real estate agents, the sellers, there's something that's called, like they have to tell you if anything is wrong with the home that would constitute like you wouldn't buy it. Okay, so if there was something, if they knew that something was indeed wrong with the home and then they didn't tell you, then you may be able to get them on the hook for that. Let's say you see it after. So anything that you would say, no, I wouldn't have bought it if I knew that. Right. So that's the only time. But that's why it's really important to get that inspection clause and to do your due diligence and have somebody come through.
So you do have an option of holding the original homeowner responsible if a problem is found, like the bad wiring behind the wall, if you're finding it within the warranty period.
Well, there's no warranty period. Well, you mean the inspection period, that 5 days? Well, that's what it is.
There's the inspection period, but after you buy the house, again, any kind of a purchase that you do in North America, if there is a problem with that house, like behind the walls where they can't see it, even an inspection, they're not going to open up the walls.
No. So that's what that's just part of the inspection. And no, if there's like the obvious things like plumbing, make sure they turn on the taps, make sure the water's running, make sure there's a good pressure, flush the toilets. They'll like I said, they'll look at the electrical board and make sure everything's up to date and could handle loads. They'll do things like that. They'll go on the roof. They'll check that and eavesdrops and things like that. They'll do all those things. They'll go to the attic. But anything, that's unfortunate. Like if something is behind the wall and they can't see it, then that's part of the inspection that you might not be able to see. Now, and like I said, if it's a material problem, that would say, I wouldn't have bought this house if I knew that. If it was material, but they didn't tell you, then they may be on the hook for it. But otherwise, you go with the inspection. You look at the inspection. There's things that may not be, you might not. For example, inspection. I was at an inspection of a house with clients that were buying. The shower, it was a new shower. The glass on it was kind of a half wall and then it was glass. That was a little loose because they were leaned up against it. And the inspector actually, said, "Oh, that's a little loose. It's not a big deal, but you might want to make note of that." So good thing, first of all, that your agent's there with the inspector. So I was going through the house with the inspector and the clients and making notes, right? It was a little thing, but we actually asked them to fix it before the closing. And it turned out, I actually, I may be wrong about that, whether it was in the inspection report or not. It could have been. I believe it might have been. And but we had already made a note. So if you're doing that, that's what happens during an inspection. You go with your agent, and sometimes even the cooperating agent or the seller's agent is there, and the clients. And then they go through it.
They can all witness what's being discovered.
But after that's done, there really isn't a warranty period after closing. Unless, like, for example, they promise to, let's say all the appliances be in working order, and let's say dishwasher's not in working order. Well, then you follow up with your lawyer and you say, listen, the dishwasher wasn't working. We said that has to be in working order, so please come and fix it. Yeah.
Good one. Good to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to the end of this episode. Keep an eye out for the next part of this conversation with Vittoria Gallone, real estate agent from Forest Hill Real Estate Brokerage. Until next time, I'm Eva John for CooLife Podcast. Bye.
And that was our show. Thank you for listening to the very end. Please remember to subscribe through your streaming service to get more access to our guest interviews. Also, please subscribe on YouTube to help support our podcast. Until next time, I'm Eva John for CooLife Podcast. Thank you for turning me on.